Hi, Luke.
Hi, how are you,
Thanks for coming. I'm great.
Oh, cool. Me too.
I'm so happy to talk to you, and I would love for you to introduce yourself. Say who you are.
I identify as a trans man. How do you identify?
As a cis, white, able-bodied bi woman.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of
That's good. I'm
sections,
also
but
white and able-bodied.
yeah.
So
How do you identify your sexuality?
sexuality. I believe in fluidity, like across the board. I have dated many different types of people. I'm just a very loving being, so it's, hard for me to just limit myself to one gender or stereotype of a person.
That's interesting because you are in a hetero relationship
Yes.
with a trans woman. Your partner is trans.
Right. She's not here, so I won't tell her entire story. But she's very binary in her identity. She identifies as a male to female, binary trans woman. She considers herself very straight. But I still have femininity in me. She still has her masculinity on occasion in her too. It's a very small part, but she has admitted to it, and we've talked about how all of our parts just kind of fit together, which is really cool. So it's like my masculinity loves her femininity, her masculinity loves my femininity, and so on and so forth. So it's like a puzzle piece, and it's pretty cool to
That's
witness.
so beautiful. That's like the only beautiful thing I've heard about gender ever. I feel like gender is so harmful, but that's such a beautiful way of talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm super curious what masculinity means to you. What does being a man mean to you?
Masculinity, femininity, those character traits are actually kind of how much you live up to those expected societal norms placed on us, right? So it's not that simple. Like your masculinity and your femininity isn't completely determined by, or your behaviors aren't completely determined by your biological, physiological, or cultural. It's not either or. It's a big modge podge of both. So a man could have been exposed to a very masculine father figure, and then he kind of emulates that. But then there's also the genetics part of it, that he's also got these genes that make him bigger and stronger. So that's the biological part of it. So you're growing taller, and then maybe you go into a more manual labor type of job, which then kind of requires you to wear looser fitting clothing, which, you know what I mean? And there's that expression part of masculinity.
Yeah.
So, and similarly, a biologically born male might not have the genetics to be bigger, might have more of a softer side, because hormones absolutely play a role in it. And I know this because I take testosterone, right? So I know 100% when I was presenting feminine, I was trying to masculinize my body as much as I could. I didn't realize it at the time.
According to who was
Right.
your body ideal?
Oh, I would go into the gym. I actually had a boyfriend at the time, and he was an ex-Marine, and I was probably more so emulating him, and I didn't realize that. He was like my best friend. We would play video games together and stuff, and I didn't even really know what trans was at the time. So I was constantly in the gym, constantly trying to achieve this masculine physique. I could do 500 sit-ups in a row. I kid you not. I was obsessed with it, but I never had a six-pack until I took testosterone. I don't now. I lost it, but I did, and that's absolutely correlating to my testosterone, the hormones that I'm taking. Also just the way that I deal with emotions. I'm much. My sadness actually comes out more in anger. But then luckily nurturing for my family has taught me how to reserve myself. My behaviors are learned thing that I've learned through society, and just how to, so I've learned how to deal with the anger, but it's definitely a different type of way to deal with sadness. I don't feel sensitive anymore. I wish that I did, but I love that. I do miss that, that being able to feel deep emotions.
Yeah,
And
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You talk a bit about going to the gym and trying to achieve this six-pack. I've heard that for trans people, it can be really challenging. Body image issues can be really challenging because you're trying to reach an ideal that you're even further away from because
Yes.
of the body you were born in. So
Yes.
I would love to hear how that.
And let's put it this way: but pre-T, I drove a pickup truck, and I have two huge dogs. I love them to death, but and I was dating the most femme women that I could date. I was really trying to validate my masculinity in all these different ways that I couldn't without having, before I had testosterone, the option of testosterone. But then once I started coming out as trans and coming into my true self, physiologically, and I was looking in the mirror and I was starting to see who I was, I became more confident in my self-identity as carrying my masculinity with me, that I didn't need these other external validations anymore. So, and then it even opened me up, sexually. Like I ended up even messing around with a couple of my trans guy friends, like, pre-Victoria, of course, because, but, it was more like I was confident in that. I didn't need that validation. I was like, sexuality's fluid. Like, I'm happy and hornier because I'm on testosterone.
Yeah. How does it feel to be a white guy? Like,
yeah. Oh, there's so much to that. I mean, the privilege is insane. Even when I was identifying as a butch lesbian, I had more privilege, in my industry. I'm in advertising, and than I know any POC person ever did. And then now you're adding masculinity on top of that identity. And I was not choosing this. It is who I am, but it's like to walk through life and be woke about that, and to know that, like, this is more of a privilege than I've ever had. All I want to do is, like, truly help people. Like, I really try to, like, speak up whenever anybody's being silenced. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not using my privilege to help others, like, screw me.
I think you mentioned passing, and passing is a really interesting concept, right? Because a lot of people do it for safety reasons. A lot of people do it because they want to, but it's obviously not accessible to everybody. But you pass as
and
you...
I'm super. I just also want to point that out, that, like, not everybody can pass, and everybody's gender identity is valid. And also, some people just can't afford hormones. They're, like, not medically able. Their body is not able to take hormones. It's also much harder for trans women to pass. It's much easier for us guys it's easier to bulk up than to slim down, and they have so many other procedures they have to go through. Like, I feel for them so much. And so it's interesting because, like, there are people that live stealth, and that's for if they can live stealth.
What does that mean?
Stealth means that they're not out as trans. They just are passing and walking through life stealth. Nobody knows. So, and some people just do it because they just want to do it. They don't feel any sort of a connection. They're like, I am not trans. I don't want to identify as trans. And it's a super huge trigger to them. But then also, some people just, obviously, in certain areas of the country or even the world, like, it's a huge danger to be out as trans. So it's interesting. Like, I choose to be visible because for those who cannot be. And also, I've lived in, LA, I've lived in New York. I'm living in bubbles, and I'm very, like, I always have to remind myself, like, Lucas, you're in a bubble. Like, it's not like this everywhere, and and it's not to say, though, that there are some hardships with being visible, even though I am passing. Like, some people actually almost are overly nice to me, you know what I mean? And I can tell, and then they're, like, going out of their way to be like, hey, and it's, like, nice, but it almost feels like they're kind of babying me.
You mean, like, because you're trans?
Yeah, it's like I have, like, a problem. Like, they're just like, hey, Lucas, what's up? Hey, buddy.
Oh, God.
And it's like, hi, it happens in the office.
Rolling my eyes for all the cis people right
and I
now.
don't want to be like, I totally am, like, I would take that any day over hate, any day, but it's like, it's kind of like, I want to work I want to have the bar as high, as it is for anybody else. Like, I don't want to be, like, the bar lowered because, oh, poor guy, you're cis, or you're trans,
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I would just want to tell anybody out there struggling with it to just, that be yourself, you know, because you're always going to be more masculine or more feminine than someone, and you're always going to be less feminine and less masculine than somebody else. So just be you, because that's what it really matters. If you're living from your heart, it's the truth. So
That's such a great note to end on. Thank you so much.
well, thank you.